Hey guys, good work. You all found the link to this video. Should be about 40 minutes that I need you to watch. I'll give you some updates. Then we're going to watch a little interview with my buddy Rico that I'll explain in a second. But since we can't meet for our missions trip, this is how we're going to do it for today, which is pretty much how you've been doing everything, is just staring at screens. So here's what I know about our trip, because people are asking, like, are you still going to Alaska? As of now, yes, we are planning on going to Alaska. But if we are going to go, if we're going to plan on going, we still have to get some meetings out of the way like we're doing now. We still have to do a little bit of fundraising. We don't have the luxury of just waiting until like June or July to say yes or no, because even if we say yes, we wouldn't have enough time to raise the money. So we want to keep moving forward as if we're going, and then if that changes, then we'll do something else. Either do something local or do something at a different time of the year. So here's a couple things to keep in mind as we move forward. First, because we're going to be kind of lacking on our fundraisers, you have to send out your support letters. We will do a big fundraiser if we can. But we might not be able to. It just depends on, I don't know, what they will let us do and how big of groups can gather and stuff like that. So if you haven't sent out your support letters, you got to do that. You got to do it right now. You can find the link to my letter on our new website, reallifencw.com. So go to the students section. It's on there somewhere. Send out your support letters. And here's what's really cool. If you're thinking like, well, what happens if people send me money and I don't actually go on the trip? We have agreed as a church that we will roll over any money that is sent to your account for next year's trip. So if it comes down to it and we cannot go on the trip for some reason, we'll take all that money and we'll roll it over to the next trip. And if you're like, but Graham, I'm a senior, I don't know if I'm actually going to go again, we can talk about that, you and I. Just give me a call, and we'll figure it out. We're not going to screw anybody over. Sorry to use big boy language, Sammy Bordner. But we'll make it work. Okay, I promise you that. We'll make it work. The thing is, though, you can't wait until June or July to send out your support letters. It'll just be too late. So that is the big piece that I want you to understand right now. Also right now, I was hoping to be able to tell you what my trip to Alaska was going to be like. That's what our next meeting was going to be, but I didn't get to go. That was supposed to be like the week they started shutting everything down, and so Kayla and I did not get to end up going on the trip. So what I did do was I got a hold of a friend of mine named Ricardo Whirl, or Rico as most people call him. And last week Rico and I did a Skype interview where I interviewed him because Rico is Native Alaskan. He has lived his whole life in Juneau, and then in the last couple of years has attended Whitworth University and met people that I knew. So I just asked if I could ask him some questions and help us understand better what Native culture is like. Things that would be helpful for us when we get up there, and just things, because I think when we can put ourselves into other people's minds, we can put ourselves into other people's shoes, and then we can understand why they make the decisions they do, how they view us, how we can maybe love or support, treat them better. So that was my big thing. Now here's the deal. Right after this, I'll show you the video of Rico and I. And then down below this video in the comment section or the description will be a link to a Google quiz. All right. Now I hate doing this, but I have to. I have to know that, because you have to attend every meeting. They're mandatory. So I have to know that you watched this. So I need you to take that quiz. It's 10 questions and they're all softballs. Okay. We're not trying to trick anybody. It's just to know that you watched it. Okay, so the interview with Rico is about 23 minutes long. And then after that, click the link below and go take that quiz. And you can take that anytime from now until Sunday night. And that's when I know that you have all attended this meeting. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But don't forget to send out your support letters and fill out that quiz. It'll take you like seriously 2 minutes because most of you are smart kids. There's a couple of you that it might take a little longer, but that's okay. You have till Sunday. So do those things. Get a hold of me if you have any questions, and I hope you guys are doing well. All right. So, Rico, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you grow up? Where in Alaska are you from? Just give us a little background on you.
Yeah, so I grew up in Juneau, which is the capital, and Juneau's actually considered a decent sized city. I think there's maybe about 30, yeah, about 30,000 people there. Just grew up with my family in a regular house, not an igloo. We don't have enough ice there for that. It was honestly pretty similar to what I would expect the typical American, high school teenager lifestyle was, just with a little bit more, I'll just say pizzazz thrown in.
Okay.
I have a glacier down the street from my house. Um, I did a lot of Alaskans, and what I did was food's pretty expensive, so I'd say my biggest difference growing up in Juneau was getting to fish and hunt a lot more. Just because food's
Tell us about
expensive.
that a little bit.
So for fishing, every Alaskan can apply for what's called subsistence license, and it's basically a license that says, "Hey, I depend on fishing to feed myself and my family, so I can do different types of fishing, and I can get more fish than someone that's just going out for fun." And then as far as hunting goes, yes, there's a federal law that mandates that Alaska Natives can harvest marine mammals. It's been our way of life, and how we feed ourselves and how we maintain our culture.
So I didn't expect us to be talking about this so soon, but I'm enamored with this stuff because I think it's interesting. Like,
Yeah.
tell me, sea animals. What were you going to get?
It depends on where you are. Um, in Southeast, it's mainly seals and sea otter.
Mm-hmm.
They're both incredibly nutritious, like nutritiously dense foods. But as you head up farther north, that's where you get whale hunters, different types of seals. You guys are going to Soldotna, right?
Yeah,
So it
correct.
should be pretty similar. The natives around there should be harvesting some of the same things.
Okay, and that brings me to a question that I'd asked you before: is what do we call people who are natively from Alaska?
Yeah. So the term most people go by and what we prefer are Alaska natives, or indigenous also works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there words that we would not want to use that might be offensive?
Yeah. So like obviously stay away from like heavy slurs like redskin,
Okay.
definitely those. But two words that are like kind of used just in government paperwork just because that's how it's been, but uh Indian and Eskimo should be avoided more or less. They've more or less just kind of fallen out of style because they're not really fitting to how we define ourselves.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So Native Alaskan is how we'll go with it, and then similar to we have Native Americans or Native Indians or First Nation, I think is what we're supposed to call them now. Do you have different tribes? You have stuff like that?
Yeah, ours is completely different than, I guess, what we call the lower 48. We do have tribes. We have, in fact, I think about 270
Okay.
federally recognized tribes in Alaska. So each of those are incredibly diverse with their own language and way of life. Imagine it like Europe. All these places like England, Finland, they're close together, but they're not the same.
Okay. Yeah.
We just kind of
Yeah.
got grouped together.
Mm-hmm. And then tell us a little bit about your what do you call them? A nation? What do you a
Tribe.
tribe? A tribe. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your tribe.
Yeah, my tribe are called Tlingit people. We inhabited an area that's now um, as far north as like all of Southeast Alaska, down to British Columbia, and as far south as Washington.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Yeah.
And then how much do you grow up with that culture embedded in you outside of the hunting and fishing?
It really depends on where you grow up, because I grew up in the city. I guess grew up a little bit less than those in villages where that's, forced into the way of life. You can't, go to the mall for fun. So I'd say um, it's still pretty embedded in the small villages. They still live pretty close to the way they used to with, obviously they have internet, electricity nowadays, but it's still a strong force in the communities.
All right. And we've talked about this once before, is like your grandma is somebody, right?
Yeah.
Like in the tribe and in Juneau, like she's somebody. Who is she?
My paternal grandma, Dr. Rosita Worrell, she's one of the leaders in Alaska Native rights. So right now she's working on making sure we get to continue our way of life, because with climate change, there's less and less resources, and she wants to make sure we have the resources to keep living as we have for the last 10,000 years.
So not just the ability to go out and hunt and fish those things, but that they'll be sustainable to be able to do those things.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a big issue right now in Alaska, is like, who has the rights to these things? Because obviously, we've been at it for 10,000 years, but then people, and reasonably have the rights to come up, enjoy time fishing with their family for fun. Commercial fishermen need to make ends meet too. So that's a big tension in Alaska right now.
That's interesting. And what are you doing with your life right now?
Right now, I'm going to school at Whitworth with Becca and Mario. But I'm an English literature major, and long term, I want to get into linguistics and work to make sure that my tribe's language is preserved.
Okay, and how will you do that? What is that? I mean, do you have a written language? Is there?
Yeah, my tribe has a written language. It's the English alphabet, or Latin alphabet. Yeah. Yeah, we have some old written documents, but we're working right now on making schools in our language. Kind of like the Sailor School here in Spokane.
Oh yeah, I was telling my kids the other day, my 7-year-old son, that not all languages have the same letters, and it blew his mind. Like, because he didn't realize that, Japanese doesn't use any of our, letters and stuff. But so you guys do use what'd you call it? Greek, English, whatever it is.
Yeah, same alphabet as English. It's hard though, because some of our sounds aren't captured well by English language. Like we have like a guttural sound that just we used an X because I guess that's closest.
Yeah. Okay. And how often did you grow up speaking that language?
I grew up in a bilingual household. So a lot of my grandparents still speak the language.
And do they only speak the language, or do they also speak English?
They also speak English some.
Okay.
I think that's the case in a lot of Alaska Native households. You could probably expect the same up north in Soldotna, where like the grandparents are fluent, and then the parents don't really speak, and then now we're seeing the grandchildren starting to speak the language again.
Oh, that's really cool. It's kind of like being reborn.
Yeah.
And your goal is to help preserve that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Now you mentioned a girl named Becca. For the people on the trip, how do you know Becca?
Becca's my girlfriend.
Oh, there we go.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we love Becca, and a lot of people have been on mission trips with her. So we're super grateful that you and her fell in love at the greatest school.
Don't worry about it, Becca.
Don't worry about it, Becca. Oh, hey, Becca. Tell us about Alaskan Natives and religion. Like, what traditionally does that look like, or at least for your tribe?
For my tribe, a lot of Alaska Native religions were lost due to harsh and misplaced and misunderstood mission work
Hmm.
in the late 1800s, early 1900s
By Christians is
by
what I'm assuming.
Christians.
By Christians.
Yes. But
Tell me,
what?
tell me a little bit more about that. What does that mean exactly?
So through like westward expansion, basically, as people were colonizing, moving up Alaska, missionaries came with them, and they set up boarding schools to where they would essentially kidnap kids, Alaska Native kids from villages, place them in these boarding schools, and try to like force the English language on them, um, and beat their own culture out of them.
Yeah, whitewash them, right?
Ba-
Is kind of the
Basically,
term that.
they're pretty abusive.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. So then, what? Back to the religion question. What would or what is a traditional view of religion look like?
A lot of our religions are based around land. Like our connection to our land is very sacred to us. Both just because it's like practically gives us everything we need, and just because it ties us to where our ancestors and where we've lived for thousands of years.
Can you give us an example of what that might look like, or maybe what a tradition is that you guys have?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah. So, in logging nowadays, whenever we start up the logging season, we have something called a tree ceremony, and that involves just like the first tree we cut down. We we hold a ceremony where we thank the trees uh, for giving themselves to us and sing some songs. And
All
the
right.
same goes for fish harvest. First fish harvest of the year is a pretty big event.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Seems like there's a respect between you and the land, or your tribe and the land.
Yeah, we very much view the land and everything that comes from the land as alive.
So then, with colonization and kind of whitewashing, what is the view? And I know this is kind of a big question I'm asking you to answer for all hundreds of thousands of Native Alaskans, but what is a typical view of Christianity? Is it positive, negative, neutral?
I'd say it's a mix, I'd say like a spectrum. I'd say a majority are either actually like devout Christians.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'd say like, yeah, half and half are like devout Christians. A lot of them in Southeast Alaska are Russian Orthodox. That's just left over from when Russia colonized.
Okay.
And then the other half, I'd say, are adamantly against it, just because those boarding schools were only 2 generations ago. So we're still a little bit cautious and skeptical.
Yeah.
And there's a few right now that we see it as like a mix, kind of like we're trying to reconcile, like, how can I balance my traditional spirituality with being a Christian?
So you, as a follower of Jesus, how did that come to be, and how do you mix that with the religion of your tribe?
Honestly, I've been working on that since I've got to Whitworth. It's something I really wanted to tackle. But something for me that kind of sticks with it is I see both Christianity and my traditional spirituality, they both have such a care for the land. It's something I see. Kind of like in other words, like taking care of God's creation.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so when I was at Whitworth, I only knew 2 kids from Alaska. One of them, my buddy Sean, white guy. Another one was this girl who was super quiet. She sat in the back, and she was Native Alaskan. And she was in public speaking with me. And during that, she gave a talk on being Native Alaskan and going to pursue higher education. and how for her, at least her tribe, and I don't remember where she's from, that was a rarity.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that a little bit, or like maybe a view of education, and then why are you pursuing higher education if that's rare?
Yeah. So I'd say like three things that come to mind is kind of like, at least for my tribe, the difficulty is we have a real value on education. From early on, our people recognize the need that like, oh, okay, well, if we're going to be colonized and these people are going to be here, we need to educate ourselves about this. So we have a strong need for education, but a lot of these rural villages, it's hard to get out. Like it's such a small, remote place, not a lot of opportunity. It's hard to see a world that's beyond that.
So do you think you went to school because you grew up in a bigger town, or?
I think that's part of it. Yeah.
And do you think too, because I mean, or am I misreading it a little bit, of where majority, or I shouldn't say majority, a large chunk of Native Alaskans don't pursue education after high school?
Oh, why is that?
Is that true or not true? I don't know if I'm making that up.
Yeah, I'd say a large proportion do. Either just because they don't see it as a viable option, or they do, but they know they don't have the resources.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit just about different Alaskan, Native Alaskan culture things, like maybe customs, maybe like I had read that, hey, we don't wear our shoes in the house, or what are some things that maybe differ in a Native Alaskan's home than my white person home?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, shoes is definitely one, just because like we're all like fishermen, so dirty shoes. So definitely make sure to take your shoes off. And I'd say another, like the main difference I would say is food.
Okay.
Food is very sacred to us, just because we have to go out and get it ourselves. It's not like we couldn't go to the grocery store and buy it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say like two things I'd avoid, or keep in mind when you're eating at an Alaska Native's house is avoid wasting food, just because it takes a lot to get it.
Okay.
Or avoid talking badly about the food.
Okay, very important.
And alas, I've noticed like a lot of other cultures, like we're very welcoming to people that are in our home. They'll want to feed you a lot and feed you everything they have. But it's okay to refuse food if it's a little bit too adventurous for you, I'll say.
Okay.
But feel free to step outside your comfort zone, because you'll be pleasantly surprised. Like Becca. Becca has yet to find Alaska Native food she doesn't like.
All right. What was it like though for you, coming from a place where food is more scarce and there's more work to put into it? What was it like to walk into Saga for the first time and there's food in abundance and kids are taking way more than they need? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, walking into Saga was wild. Just for me, it was like the choices you have. For us, it's just like, fish every night of the week and then rice or potatoes. But just like, you want Chinese, pizza, a burger, just the diversity of it. But then as far as like wastefulness, I think that just comes from not learning to have to harvest your own food. There's an appreciation you get from having a direct connection with your food.
Yeah. What else would you say that Native Alaskans wish either tourists or missionaries or just white people knew?
I think I kind of mentioned this before. Is just kind of like a lot of the stuff that happened with us, like our interactions with missionaries, was fairly recent. This was just 2 generations ago. Mm-hmm. So a lot of our trauma is fresh and recent, so it's still a little tender. But you'd be surprised how many Alaskans are ready to move on and like how to like mend these wounds. So I'd say that's one thing we wish we knew. And the other thing I think I'd like to emphasize, just how incredibly diverse Alaska is. It's easy to think like, oh, they all live in igloos, they all, have the same way of life, but there's like 200 different recognized tribes,
Yeah.
each with their own unique way of life.
And what would you say to, you got a captive group of teenagers that are headed up to your home state? What would you like to say to them as Rico Whirl to these kids?
I'd say some like quick tips. Soldotna is a beautiful place. It's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be as wild as you think. Soldotna, they have a couple high schools around there. It's fairly well populated, but there's lots to explore. 2 tips I'd have for people going to that area: keep track of your time, because you're heading up in the summer, right?
In August.
Oh yeah, in August. Yeah, keep track of time because we have lots of daylight. So you're gonna want to keep going, running around. Graham, it's gonna be hard to get teenagers to settle down when it's like 10 at night, but it's gonna look like midday.
Oh my gosh.
And then bug spray.
Okay.
Mosquitoes are really bad up north, just like swarms of them.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. That's the basic questions I had for you, and you nailed them. Is there anything else that I didn't get to that you'd love to put in here?
Yeah, quick tips for tourists to avoid. Of our, 5 species of salmon, do not eat any chum salmon or any pink salmon. Those are like plentiful, but those are the ones we typically reserve for tourists because they're not as good eating.
All right. They told us we could do some salmon fishing every day. But who knows what they're letting us fish for.
So yeah, go for sockeye or silvers or coho.
All right.
That'd be my tip.
And I'm like the worst fisherman in the world because I usually fish like once a year. So if I catch anything, I'm pretty happy. Like a stick or a shoe, I'll be extremely happy. But yeah. All right, man. Anything else?
I think that's about it. Keep an open mind, have fun.
All right.
Yeah,
I super appreciate you taking the time to do this and helping us out. Because again, we don't have any Native Alaskans around here, as far as I know. But
yeah. Thanks for having me on. It was a great opportunity.
Okay. Oh wait, I have another question. I don't know that I'm going to put this in the final video, but your name is Ricardo, right?
Yeah, that's my full English name. Yeah.
So is there another name, or is there? Because it's a very white European name, right?
Yeah. That's my Filipino side. I'm half Filipino.
Oh, okay.
So that's my legal name, but my name I'm called at home is my Tlingit name. It's Gush Dehin.
And so your mom and dad call you that?
Yeah.
All right. And when you go to high school, do they call you that, or do they call you Rico?
Yeah, just for ease, I tell most people Rico.
Yeah. I get it. My name is Graham, and that's it. It's just boring Graham. It's like you could cough my name out. It's so boring. So, all right, Rico. Well, I super appreciate your time. Thanks again. Give Becca our love, but at a safe social distance.
Yeah. All right,
all right, man. Yep. Have a great day.
All right, guys, now I need you to click that link right down here. I need you to take that quiz. Just do it right now while it's fresh in your mind. I'm serious. It'll take you 2 minutes. It's not hard at all. And then that way I know you made it to our second meeting, and you will get kind of credit for that. And don't forget to send out your support letters. If you've thought of more people, you can send out more letters. So maybe you just go start knocking on doors and leaving them places. I don't know. But again, we got to start raising money. We can't just wait until we know if the trip is on or not. And if your parents ask, I am right now waiting for May 4th when the governor is going to make another announcement about how many people can meet and stuff like that. And then hopefully that will help us make our decision. Luckily, if not, we're only out $50 a person for our airline deposits right now. So that's not bad at all. And I will let you guys know as soon as that decision has been made. Other than that, See you guys later, hopefully someday. Hope you're doing well. And again, let me know if you have any questions. Peace out.